everybody, and welcome to National Home Buying Week Live. My name is Linda Clark. I'm the editor of First Time Buyer magazine, and today I'm joined by some wonderful first-time buyers who are all in different stages of their home buying journey, and they're going to talk about the different situations that they've been in, the highs and the lows of what it can be to buy your first home. And I'm also joined by two wonderful experts, Stuart Hensby, who's Associate Director of Sales and Marketing at Abry. Thanks so very much for coming along, Stuart. And also Jen Cobley, who's Head of Sales at Legal & General Affordable Homes. Thank you for coming, that's wonderful. So it's really nice that we can sort of, hopefully today, bridge the gap between first-time buyers and the experts. You know, you've got the chance to talk to each other and ask any questions. I know you're all different stages, as we've said. But to start us off, I think it'd be really good to hear a little about, a little bit about your story and where you are. So why don't we start with Laura and George? If you could just tell us a little bit about yourselves and what stage you're at with the home buying process.
Yeah, so I'm Laura and George. We have just moved in really.
Wow.
We got our keys in July, so about over a month ago, in Tolworth, Signal Park with Guinness Homes. So we are in the exciting stage where we're buying things, and every weekend we're at IKEA kind of thing. That's where we're at the moment with the process.
And when you were started, just give us a little bit of background about how it all sort of went. You don't have to go into too much detail, but you obviously were looking. How did that happen?
Yeah, so we were fairly quite we weren't looking for that long, to be fair. It was more just like internet research. But I actually have always lived in Tolworth. I grew up in Tolworth. And for me, I wanted to stay in the area.
Yeah.
And I've kind of seen Signal Park go from like a complete rubble to being, three big buildings. So I was driving past every single day and kind of started seeing more advertising for it. So I did a bit of research. We both looked at it. And we were like, oh, go on then, let's go have a look. And we went, and in February this year, completely fell in love with just the kitchen. That was me. Just the layout of the kitchen. We hadn't even seen it, so we bought completely off plan. And spoke to the team there. They were absolutely brilliant. Kept us kind of made us feel at ease with the process, because we've never done anything like this before, so it was just a bit like, oh my gosh, but they were lovely. And then kind of reserved pretty much straight away.
Wow.
Went through the process of reserving, had a mortgage offer within April, and then we were in by July.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was
lovely, happy ever after story.
Absolutely. Yeah,
very good. Well, I think Tolworth's one to watch, definitely.
Yes.
And Sarah, what about you? You've got a different story, I think.
Yeah, slightly different. So I've had my home for a couple of years now. I just bought it on the open market. I was just browsing Rightmove all the time, to be honest. I still do, I just love it. But I put an offer in and it got accepted quite quickly. It was probably, it's probably like one of the 10th home or something I'd viewed. I'd viewed quite a lot.
Yeah.
And there was just something about this one, might have been the loft space, I'm not sure. But there was just something about it that I really liked, so I bought it. It was a bit smaller than the others, but yeah, very happy there, a couple of years in.
Marvellous.
Did some home improvements. It was all very exciting, still loving it.
Very exciting. And Laura, what about you? Where are you at the moment?
Well, I've exchanged on my new home, a 2-bed shared ownership apartment in Bracknell, and I'm hoping to complete very soon. Excellent. I mean, it all started for me. I think I always knew that I would use shared ownership, and I think I'd almost got into the trap that people get into, where you think I'm just going to wait for the next pay rise, or I'm going to just wait till the market's right. And my landlord decided to sell the flat that I was living in.
Wow!
So that kind of gave me a bit of a kick, really, to have a look.
Yes.
So I went and looked at a block of flats in Bracknell, and I didn't look at anything else, and I reserved it on the day, and that was that. And then, funnily enough, the sale of the place that I'm living in actually fell through. So I'm still living there at the moment, but yeah, it kind of gave me the kick that I needed to really
Yes.
just get a move on and buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bought shared ownership as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
So how many % did you buy? How many percentage did you buy?
25%.
25. And what about you, Laura?
same 25%.
So you're just starting off.
Yeah.
And then are you thinking about maybe staircasing eventually?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think for the sake of anybody that's watching this who doesn't quite understand what shared ownership is, it all sounds a bit 25%. Maybe we could perhaps ask you, Stuart, could you just give us a very quick recap on how it is, how
Yeah,
shared
absolutely.
ownership works?
Yeah, thank you, Linda, and love to hear all of your stories. They're so different and unique and exciting. So shared ownership, in simple terms, you buy a portion of your home. We call it a tranche, but it's a share of your home, and that can range from as low as 10%. All the way up to 75% actually, and then the remaining part you pay a small amount of rent on that portion, which is subsidised rent. It's much lower than you would pay, say, on the open market. And the idea is then in the future you buy more shares as your sort of income grows over the years, with the overall goal of hopefully owning 100% of your own home one day.
And Jen, it's a very affordable way, isn't it? Obviously, because you're only getting a mortgage on the bit you own.
Absolutely. So the unique thing about shared ownership is it offers people with smaller deposits the opportunity to get onto the ladder. As Stuart has referred back to, you can staircase out, you can resell, use the equity that you've built within the property, you can buy on the open market. The lovely thing about shared ownership is it's such a flexible product. And the rent is generally subsidised, so if you're looking at your outgoings, so mortgage, rent, service charge, if you're in an apartment, quite often it will be less than renting on the open market.
Absolutely. So one of the things I just wondered about was you all said you sort of went there and reserved on the day. Had you already worked out your finances? Laura, had you? No, you just...
No. We kind of, when we turned up, we didn't have a clue really.
You didn't really know what you could afford, I suppose. No,
and we didn't even know if we could afford, this home. So it was really just on the whim kind of thing. It's always been a dream of mine. It's always been something we've both wanted to do as well. But it's just been so difficult. So we just kind of put it off. So we didn't know if we could afford it, but
no. But hey ho,
we've done it in the end, so we've managed it.
Amazing. And how about you, Laura? Did you see a mortgage advisor first, or did you do what Laura and George have done?
In the middle. I feel like I'm the complete opposite to you, actually. I used the online calculators and I'd done all the maths and almost followed all of the right steps. So I kind of knew what I could afford to borrow and what I could afford to pay each month, which was actually more important to me than the amount that I could borrow in total.
Yes.
So I kind of went in knowing that I could afford the plot that I wanted, and I knew which plot I wanted. So I kind of walked in, looked at the show home, knew that I could afford it, and just said yes then and there.
Right.
But then I saw the financial
then
advisor.
you saw the
afterwards.
financial.
Yeah.
Sarah, how about you? Because you'd obviously your deposit, because their deposit would be much lower than buying on the open market.
Yeah. So I'd worked out my finances beforehand, and similar to you, I'd worked out what I could pay each month and then sort of worked back from there and said, right, okay, so then I've got this much money deposit. What can I then borrow that means I pay this much a month? So I didn't actually go and see a proper mortgage advisor until I'd put the offer in.
Oh,
but
wow,
I had,
but you had a good idea.
I had a good idea. I'd done quite a lot of research. I'm fortunate to have some family members who are quite useful in that department, so they helped me out a bit with the money.
Yeah, that's really good. Excellent. So would you advise somebody to do what, I mean, fair play, amazing that they've all got this happy ever after story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we always normally advise that you see a mortgage advisor, blah, blah, blah. But what would you say? Probably to go and see somebody first, just so you've got a rough idea.
Yeah, normally, but you know what? Everybody's different.
Yeah.
And everybody sort of processes the journey differently. And I think it's really interesting, all three of you, all very different. And but you've come all to the same place in a sense. And I think that's what's really interesting, because everyone that sort of marketing and selling homes, you need to appeal to all walks of life, and everybody who does start their journey differently. Laura, you started looking at the calculators, and there's loads of those everywhere online now, isn't there, as well? Lord George, you just went, you know what, we're doing it, dive straight in. And Sarah, to your point, you know, help with deposit is really important on the open market, isn't it? And arguably,
Definitely.
maybe couldn't have done it without that.
I
Would have been
absolutely
really
couldn't
challenging.
No, I wouldn't have been able to.
So there's all different options, but yeah, I think, you know, one of the most important things is to be match fit. I like to call it match fit. And that's, you know, to buy, you need to understand if you can buy. And there could be things that maybe you're not familiar with in terms of your own sort of financial circumstances that could trip you up on that journey. So speaking to a broker at an early stage is really important, because then you can get a feel for, okay, I can do it now, great, or no, I need to do X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely.
And then maybe in 6 months' time, I'm ready to do it. Or you can just rock up and hope for the best, which is fine either way. You know, but that works for everybody, doesn't it? You know, and that's the journey that we go on, and that's why it's so exciting.
Absolutely. Would you agree with that, Jen? I mean,
absolutely. And I think as well, it's quite rare that people walk in and reserve on the day nowadays. It's kind of a behaviour that's kind of been a bit outdone now, because there's so much on the market. People want to shop around, they want to look at different things, so it's quite rare. So you know, great for you if you walked in, you're definite that that's the thing. I think as well, buying outright's a slightly different journey. With shared ownership, there's a lot more complexity around affordability. So there's so many more factors that need to be taken into account when looking at affordability. But I completely agree. Get a copy of your credit report, look at your bank statements, make sure that everything is tip top before you make that decision.
Oh, definitely. I mean, were you all aware that you needed to have good credit? Yes. Because I don't really, you know, this is not always widely heard about, but obviously trying to get a mortgage with bad credit is always a bit of an issue, isn't it? But you all really thought that through. That's excellent. So sorry, Sarah, we're just going to talk about shared ownership for a minute. So
Fine, it's quite interesting.
With shared ownership, have you got plans? I mean, are you aware that you can just do things to your home which you can't do in a rented accommodation, so you can paint the walls and things? Are you going to plan to do some things like that?
I think we definitely want to put our own stamp on it, and actually it's quite nice that we have the luxury of doing so, because well, it means it's ours, you know, even though it's shared. And I think there's a lot of taboos to shared ownership, and it's not actually yours, but the fact that we can make it completely ours is
100%, absolutely,
you know,
100%.
It's shared, but it's still ours.
Ultimately, it's a way to get your foot on the ladder, isn't it? With a lower deposit, and it gets you off the mark. But it's still your home, you know.
And Jane, what are the things that you can't do in a shared ownership home? I mean, obviously you can't knock a wall down.
Absolutely.
But you couldn't do that in probably Sarah's place either, could you? Because it might...
Oh, I did.
You did?
I did knock it down. I did knock it down. Yeah.
Wow.
I did.
Okay, we're breaking the mould.
So,
Week one.
So within your shared ownership lease, there will be certain stipulations around what you can't do, and they mainly are structural, so externals, things like extending, changing the windows in certain circumstances. Then within kind of the transfer from a developer, if you're buying a new build, there might be other nuances, like you can't change the exterior of the front for the first 5 years. There's certain things, so each property will be different, and each lease situation will be slightly different. But when it comes to kind of internal work, so decoration, hanging walls, we get lots of requests for media walls, which look very fancy now. You know, you're all good to go ahead. Again, the only other thing that we advise people, if you're buying a new build for the first 12 months, just watch what you're doing, because you'll get a warranty from the builder, and unfortunately if you go in, there you go, if you go in and you go wild decorating, sometimes it can invalidate your warranty. But we want people to go in and personalise their homes and make them their own. Definitely.
I mean, that is the joy, isn't it, of doing that? I'm sure it's very exciting. So you actually knocked a wall down then, Sarah. How did all this happen?
Okay, so when I saw this property, I'd seen it on Rightmove, looked at the pictures, and I was like, okay, it's fine, but why is there a wall in between the kitchen and like the living room? And it was making it really boxy. And when I saw it in person, I've watched a bit of Homes Under the Hammer. I did the whole knock on the wall thing, and I was like, well, this can come down. I did have my dad with me. He's a bit more expert, and he confirmed. And I did seek, obviously, a builder to do it properly.
Yes.
But it was really terrible layout. Basically, that's all I really did was knock that wall down and make it a bit more open plan.
Absolutely, yeah. Nice
but I
to
did
have
do
more
it.
space.
I literally got the keys, rang my builder mate, and was like, "Come take a look."
Yeah.
Gave him the keys, and he got on with it. I didn't move in until it had been done. So
Oh, I see. It was already done when you moved in.
yeah. So I
Yes.
knew when I put the offer in, I knew I wanted to do that work, and
Yes.
if I couldn't do it, I wouldn't have put the
No.
offer in.
No.
I wouldn't have wanted to live in it with that wall.
No. Well, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's obviously potential, and you
Yeah.
saw the potential, so you realised that
Yeah.
if you knocked it down, it was perfect.
Yeah.
It's great, really
Definitely.
good. So we'll just move on to, I'm afraid we'll keep on the subject of money, savings. So did you, Laura, find it tough to save up for a deposit, or did you have to go without stuff? I mean, did you stop going on holiday or any of the Netflix or whatever it is?
I think I had quite a unique situation when it came to finances and buying my
Yes.
home. So I just work full time, just a normal job. And my partner is a PhD researcher. So she, instead of having a salary, has a stipend, which is kind of like a tax-free payment.
Oh, wow.
So that almost acted as like a salary.
Yes.
I saved a little bit each month, and she did just a lot of overtime teaching at the university and just threw all of her earnings into savings. So we kind of like lived off as little as possible, as little as realistic, and just saved bucket loads from her teaching and her work. And that's kind of how we did it. And that's a really, really lucky place to be in.
Amazing.
But yeah, that's how we did it. And I guess I can't really give you a time frame because we've always been I'm quite good at saving, and my
Yes.
mind is like that.
Yeah.
So I've always been saving, but we probably did it in a couple of years. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, how about you, Sarah? Did you have? Did you find it tough saving up?
Yeah, I was saving. I was trying to save really hard. From the moment I had my first job, I made sure I had a savings account and was putting as much as I could in there. I was fortunate. I went to university, and then I had a summer job for about 5 months. Pretty much saved every penny of that because I lived at home at the time, so I didn't really have any outgoings.
Brilliant.
So I saved a lot of that, and then, as alluded to earlier, I did have a bit of family help to up
Yes.
that deposit a little bit. Again, fortunate position to be in. But I'd say I was saving quite hard for 5 or 6 years probably, and then got a bit of a boost. But family were able to help, and then it became a reality.
Yeah.
I think from like my early 20s, I was like, well, I know I want to buy. I just
So you were
don't know when.
No, not when. Well,
yeah,
I mean,
I was like, I'm never going to be able to afford to. But
But you did
happened.
it, and
Yeah.
I mean, did you feel that you were denying yourself treats, or
No, I
You
didn't.
didn't?
No, I didn't
No.
save to the point where I wasn't like going out with my friends if
No.
they invited me out. I just was a bit more aware of what I was spending.
Yes.
Maybe
being-
not going to Waitrose, but going to Asda or something. You know.
I mean, being realistic, you've got to live.
Oh yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
for sure.
It's not really realistic to say, well, you'll never go out, you'll never spend any money. And Laura, what about you and George? Did you save like crazy? No.
Well, see, when I got my first job at 16 years old, that's when I started saving. So I've
Ooh.
pretty much saved for such a long time.
Yes.
That really, because I've been doing it for so long,
You've
it's
just-
kind of just built up a pot.
Yes.
So no, it wasn't like crazy. I think when we made the decision, we did, a little bit more, go really hard at it. But no, I've just done it for a very long time.
Because it doesn't end just when you buy. You've still
No.
got to furnish places. You've still
Yeah.
got to pay service charge. You've still got to, buy a bed and a sofa unless you're lucky enough to have it. It's very, very hard. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, about the savings, because it is tough, and I don't think people can just say, well, I will never ever spend a penny over and above, and especially at the moment with the cost of living.
I think with all of your stories, what is really clear is you've been thinking long term.
Yes.
From the get-go. You need to put a bit in the pot. But I think your point, you've got to live as well. You can't make it all-encompassing, otherwise you're kind of like, what's the point if I can't live by doing this as well? but
So true.
it's just thinking the long game and being prepared. It's all
Yeah.
about that long-term preparation.
Yes.
You can't just do it,
Yeah.
and especially with values now and how expensive it is to buy a home. You've got to have your ducks in a row.
Definitely. Well, I mean, at 16 to have the forethought to think,
Exactly.
I'm going to start saving.
Exactly.
It's amazing. 'Cause most
Had a
16-year-olds
wise
would blow their money within the first minute of getting it. You know, it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm probably in that camp as well. Yeah, there we go.
Oh dear. Well, you just had to retrain yourself.
Absolutely. Meet Laura.
I think as well, the pandemic and lockdown really helped to boost people's deposits. Certainly some of our buyers that I've spoken to have said it kind of retrained their way of thinking, because actually they weren't going out and spending that money, so they're automatically putting it aside and it's kind of attributing to something much bigger. So it's just a habit that's been nicely formed by lockdown. Something good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to location. So I think this is quite important because we'll tell our readers, you know, think about your location. Everybody's got a different criteria of things they need to be close to. So it could be a school, it could be station. How did that work for you, Laura? I mean, you said you come from Tolworth, so you obviously know the area. But was there anything particular that you wanted to be near, or you wanted not to be too far away from? Obviously, if you know the area, you wanted to keep within that sort of comfort zone.
Yeah. So family, really big for me. So obviously my mum and dad live in Tolworth, and your parents live up the road. So
Oh, right.
10-minute drive.
Okay, so very
Nice and
close.
easy.
Yes.
yeah, because obviously our next stage in our relationship is obviously a family and that. And well, I work in a nursery, so I know what childcare costs are like. So
Yes.
don't want to added on to obviously payments that we're already doing now. So for us, it was really important to be close to family, to have that like support network.
Yes.
And Tolworth is just it's got everything. So I drive, but George uses public transport. So for us, like there's a train station, there's buses. You can get to work really easily. I can commute really easily to work. There's loads of schools. There's
Really
restaurants.
Yeah, so
just
it ticked all the boxes.
ticked every box. Yeah,
lovely.
yeah, and close to family, which is really important.
Yeah, obviously,
For
that's
us.
really good. And Sarah, what about you? You chose,
Similar.
so you wanted to be close to your family.
Yeah, I wanted to be close to my family. I grew up in South London and
Yes.
I didn't really want to leave it. That was probably a little bit detrimental to begin with because it's so expensive. And when I was first looking, a lot of people did say, just move further out. And I was like, I don't want to. I want to live here.
You want to be there.
And I managed it in the end. But yeah, it was family. Station as well, a bit. I'm about a 10-minute walk from a station, so I can get to work. When I was looking, though, COVID hadn't happened. And that was more important to me. I think now I'd be like, 15, 20 minutes, it's fine. I'm okay with it. But it is very useful, and I'm right near loads of shops. That's a bonus. That wasn't my criteria, but it's definitely a good bonus, good
Yes.
selling point.
I think especially coming home at night, you know, you don't want to be too far away from a station.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have to
Yeah,
think
it's a
these
busy
things through, don't you, in the winter, etc., what it's like.
Yeah.
And how about you, Laura? I think what you're going to buy, is that close to a station?
Yeah, it's on the same street as the train station, which
wow.
is absolutely perfect. I think if you look out the window and lean a little bit, you can see the station. So
That's
absolutely
so good.
perfect. But I think for me, I wanted exactly the opposite of what I'm renting right now.
If you'd feel very, you know, something not even just a pint of milk, you can go without that. But if anything did happen, you need to be sort of somewhere a bit more central.
Oh, in the winter it's terrible. We get snowed in every winter.
I can imagine.
Every winter.
What a
So
variety of hell.
it's just
Yes.
frustrating, and
Yeah.
I can't stand not being able to walk to places or just,
No.
you know, pop out to the shops if I need to,
No,
or
I can well.
just do anything really. It was amazing in COVID, but when life turned back to normal, I realised actually
Yeah.
I can't live like this forever.
No, absolutely. I mean, do you think, Stuart, things have changed since COVID about people wanting to move in or out, or?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say when the pandemic first kicked in, the property market did actually go a bit crazy for a while because we had the stamp duty break which came into force, which got everybody excited and everybody wanted to move house during the pandemic. And actually what we saw at the beginning was a lot of people moving out of rural areas into more semi-rural areas, almost contradicting your point in a sense, Laura. Wanting more space, wanting gardens and all this sort of thing, because we all thought we were going to be at home forever. And now we sort of got past that hurdle. We're now almost a little bit doing the opposite. And to all your points, you want to be close to amenities. With that cliche, location is so important, isn't it? And you want to be 10 minutes to the train. You want to be 5 minutes from where do I buy a pint of milk, which is a really important phrase. It's used so much in the industry. I've got a question actually for you guys, which is quite topical, around ULEZ. And how that comes into your thinking with where you're living now. So how does that make you feel? How does that impact your sort of...
So it's actually impacted us a lot because it's obviously expanded in recent weeks. So now where we're living is ULEZ. Like you have to pay the charge. There's actually a camera just outside our building. So for us, it's for anyone visiting and things like that. My car is compliant, so I'm okay. And touch wood, all our family's cars are compliant. But it is frustrating because it does mean that if we did ever have any friends that weren't compliant and and they wanted to come and visit us, we are in an area now where it's going to cost them to actually come and visit us.
Absolutely.
Because I do think that could create some small trends emerging in terms of where people choose to live now as well, if they don't have ULEZ compliant vehicle.
Oh yeah, my next door neighbour's just had to sell her, well, I don't know, she probably had to give it away because nobody wants them, and buy another car, and not everybody can afford to do that.
No.
It's really hard, really hard.
Yeah.
How about you ladies? Have you, do you have a car?
I do have a car, and I must admit it hasn't really crossed my mind because I live so close to what was the ULEZ zone anyway.
Oh yes.
That I was like a mile out. So to me, I was like, I'm driving it all the time anyway.
Yeah.
I was already compliant. Your point on friends, though, I must admit, selfishly, I hadn't really been like, what if my friend, because I've got a lot of friends from uni that come and visit, I hadn't thought, what if they aren't compliant? They're going to have to pay like a tax to come and see me.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they are. I haven't thought about it. I'll be asking. Offering to split the price.
How about you, Laura? Have you thought about it?
I'm well outside of the ULEZ zone, so it doesn't really affect me, but controversially I was actually in favour of it being expanded, and if they expanded it further and I was within the zone, I would be totally supportive of it. My car is compliant anyway, so maybe selfishly I don't really care, but clean air, I think it's really important. And if my friends had to pay a fee, like fine, I'll pay it, but I think it's important, and maybe I should campaign for it to be spread to Bracknell. I don't know.
No, I agree, it is really important. Clean air is so important, absolutely. But it could impact some sort of bad decisions in the future, I think.
True. Definitely. Probably you've come across, there's a lot of jargon in the whole home buying process, isn't there? Did you get confused? I mean, things like stamp duty. People don't even actually know some of the time what a conveyancer is. So just...
I still don't.
So you still don't know what, but you must have got somebody acting for you as a legal representative, which is what a conveyancer is.
Right.
Could you just explain, Jen, can you, I don't know what a conveyancer does?
No, absolutely. So a conveyancer is effectively a property specialist solicitor. So they're going to act in your best interest when you're purchasing a property. So they're going to review things like searches, so inquiries that you might like to raise. So they're acting on your behalf to ensure that you're making a sound decision in purchasing a property.
Absolutely. And can you did you know what stamp duty is, or did you just think, well, I'll just pay it because we have to pay it, or we don't pay it? Because it's slightly different for first-time buyers. But do you know what stamp duty is? Have you heard of that?
Isn't it just like A house tax.
That's
That's what I think of it as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tax if you want to buy a property.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it varies the amount you have to pay depending on how much you buy, and shared ownership is slightly different as well. But to your answer that you weren't sure what some of these things are, I mean, how does that make you feel?
I was very nervous. Like, everything, any piece of paperwork that came my way, I was checking it with everyone that I could find that would help me, because I was like, oh my God, it's one of the biggest things you do. It's a lot of money you're putting out there, and yeah, it was quite nerve-wracking. And they, to be honest, the people I'm checking it with, brother, dad, they're going, well, if you think it looks right, it's probably right. And I'm going, okay, I suppose I'll just sign the line. Okay.
Where did you go from there, Sarah? Where did you go? Did you go online trying to find the information? What was your go-to?
My family.
Yeah.
I just asked them. I mean, I did ask my solicitor a couple of questions. Sometimes they were helpful, sometimes they weren't so helpful. But yeah, I just asked around. But people who had done it before, basically, and said, what does this mean? Do I need to be worried about this or whatever?
And how did you all decide which solicitor you were going to use?
We
Yeah.
were given a list from Guinness Homes of those that specialise in shared ownership, and I contacted them all, and the one that was nicest on the phone, because I think that was quite important, is someone like, and the one that we picked in particular kind of asked me a lot of questions about, you know, and it was more personable, so that's why we went for them.
But
Brilliant.
on that personable, it's so important though, isn't it? Because it's arguably the scariest thing you'll ever do is buying a home, and you want people that you feel comfortable with that are going to hold your hand, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What was your biggest challenge on your journey? Obviously, you're sort of still going on your journey, Laura, and you guys have completed your journey and moved in. But what do you think was your number one biggest challenge?
I think understanding everything, because, like you said, it's a lot of jargon, we didn't have a clue. Like, we didn't have a clue, and they don't teach you this in school, so it's like you're literally given.
No, maybe they should.
Well, maybe they should, but you're given leases, and you have to, you know. There's so many different aspects to it, and you'd read these documents, you'd be like, okay. But what we learn is that there are people out there that are there to help. So really, it was a lot easier than we thought. So I think that was the biggest challenge, was at first we were like, oh my gosh, but actually we've had a breeze of a journey just from people that have been able to help us. And that's, you know, our sales people, solicitor, so just ask if you need it. I don't think anyone would judge you for being a first-time buyer and not understanding.
Absolutely. I think that's true. What about you, Laura? Did you have a kind of anything at all that you've...
I think getting the mortgage was the biggest challenge for me.
Yes.
Like I said, my partner has quite a specialist salary, so trying to find a mortgage provider that would allow for that was quite a stressful process. It turns out there were... Oh, sorry, Karen.
I was just going to ask if you went through a financial advisor, because getting a broker's help is invaluable in situations
We did use a
where they're
broker.
not the most straightforward.
we did use a broker, and I don't think we would have been able to get the mortgage that we had if we didn't use a broker, which was obviously amazing. And I think we ended up going through an underwriter, which again, it's quite scary because you don't really know what that means and how likely you are to get rejected. But the mortgage advisor was so good, and again, I answered questions, and we asked a lot of questions. I think the whole process took like a month or so because it had to go through underwriting, and it was questions like every day, like, what does this mean? What if we get rejected? Who else could we try? And you know, they answered all of our questions. They were so reassuring. You know, what happens in 6 months when we have to renew? How does that all work? And they just answered every single question every time, which was invaluable. To be honest, they answered questions that they probably weren't even relevant to them, because I just was like, you're answering, you know, you're responding to me. What about this? How does this solicitor work? And they just answered everything, which was such an enormous amount of help.
And the great thing is, often, well, pretty much all the time, to be honest with you, when you're at that stage right at the beginning of the journey and you're fact-finding and asking all those questions, that information is free. There's no obligation. And companies like Adbury, like Legal & General, you know, we all work in a very similar way in that respect, and it's all there, but often it's that scary point of picking up the phone and asking those questions, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's why we hope, and I know that, you know, you definitely do a lot of hand holding, but it's really good if people can do that. And you, like you said, you feel comfortable with that person, you trust them, and you don't feel an idiot by thinking, can I just put my hand up again and ask another question? No, that is what is wanted, and we want that to happen. So did you spend hours and hours? I mean, Rightmove, I know, but hours and hours, that's kind of a drug actually. I think everybody does that. Looking at the internet, looking at websites, because sometimes that can be quite confusing. You get a lot of conflicting stuff.
No. I kind of probably did for about 10-15 minutes, and it just and again, what I was looking at was not affordable, so I
just stopped.
Yeah.
And you did spend time, did you, Laura?
I did, yeah, and I think sometimes it's hard because I think lots of different providers or affordable housing providers or mortgage brokers have, their own pages which have, the facts and all of the information on there, but it's kind of more useful to find a place that has everything all in one spot where you can say, okay, where's the legal, where's the mortgage, where's the shared ownership information, and I think resources like that are what are most valuable.
I think there's two key things here. I'm not sure if either of you would have received these, but with the new model lease, there are now key information documents that go out at every part of the sales journey, as it were, which contain a wealth of information which has come from the government. It's a government template, so it's information to be trusted. But the other thing, and I think this is what's so unique about affordable housing, and I'm sure you feel the same, Stuart, when you're setting a sales team out to go and launch some properties on a development, you want them to be ambassadors for the tenure, not ambassadors for the brand. So regardless of whether somebody buys from me at Legal & General or Stuart at Adbury, we will be ensuring that they receive the best information in a timely manner to help that person become a shared owner, not just a shared ownership through Legal & General. I think that's what's so different to in the outright sale market.
It is, yeah.
You see that.
You hit the nail on the head there. And we, sort of behind the scenes, sort of across the affordable sector, we all talk to each other a lot, and we actually work very cohesively with how we bring through. And you're right, it's about the tenure of shared ownership and the benefits that brings, so that we can help more people genuinely. We have massive WhatsApp groups and everything, believe it or not. Really interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, it is like one big family. I mean, you obviously bought through Guinness Homes, but Stuart and Jem will talk to Guinness as much as they'll talk to So Resi, and it's lovely actually because you feel then that it's very safe. Everybody's still doing the right thing together.
I know I would have probably appreciated that.
I think
I was just out there like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on.
So did you buy on the second-hand market, or did you buy
it
new
wasn't
on
new
the
build,
open
no,
market?
it's just a
second-hand market,
yeah.
And did you bought it through an estate agent?
Yeah, I mean, so I was on Rightmove, I saw one I liked and contacted the estate agent and bought it through them basically, yeah.
But then did you find the estate agent just left you at the end?
They weren't that helpful at all.
No.
They were like, okay, bye-bye. I was like, oh. And actually then the estate agent contacts then left, and then I had someone else and I wasn't told, and it was a bit confusing.
That is
hard.
Yeah. That story comes around a lot, doesn't it? That somebody's not there to follow it all the way through.
No.
Or they just change.
Yeah, the person who I then ended up like getting my keys from and stuff was not the same person I saw the house with or bought. And granted, people leave jobs, but there was no like handover or anything like that.
No, that's really poor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really poor. Because you both sell homes on the open market. I mean, I know they're new builds, but do you sell resale homes? Yes.
Yeah, we do. We do shared ownership resale homes.
Yes.
But we do sell new private homes as well. So we try and capture all the kind of information that any buyer would need, whether you're a first-time buyer or a second stepper, and try and package it all up and put it onto our website. But I'm sure you're the same, Jennifer, that you try and push that information out to your customers as much as possible on a regular basis through things like webinars and great things like this, that we're sharing information so that people can learn.
Absolutely, it's so important. I mean, I don't know how you all feel, but we were just saying about education. We've got a but I just recently did a podcast for National Home Buying Week with So Resi. Now they have done some groundbreaking work, and they're actually going into schools to educate young people just before they leave school about, well, simple saving, thinking of the future, obviously thinking about buying a property. Do you think this would have been useful when you were at school? Because I certainly, I mean, I'm obviously a lot older than anybody, but oh wow, because when you leave school you have no idea. Do you think that would have been something on the curriculum you'd have been interested in?
Oh, absolutely.
I think maintaining creditworthiness would be
Yes.
the most important thing
Yeah.
to teach to young people, because there's nothing about that until you know, go and try and get a credit card or something and then suddenly you're rejected.
Yeah.
There's nothing really out there that educates the younger
No.
audience. It's all about repairing your credit score. Well, by that point it's too late.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's
And-
almost learning too late down the line, isn't
Definitely.
And we all know what it's like when you leave, say you go to university or college, or you get your first pay packet, you blow the lot, because that's what you do. And so then you're probably then, you know, looking at your card and thinking, oh my gosh, I haven't got anything much left, and it gets worse and worse. But I do think having education in schools, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I think it's so good. Just preparation. So, you know, I think what So Resi are doing is amazing, and I think eventually it will actually, he'll manage to get government to change, which will be really good.
Yeah,
There's plenty of time.
They
I'm
do
sure.
some great work with that, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah,
really
really
good.
good.
So, before we finish, and I really have enjoyed today, it's been a really interesting conversation. We'll just go round. Top tip for a first-time buyer. You are all first-time buyers. Laura's nearly a first-time buyer, but very soon. What would be your top tip? Have you got anything you could just think of that just, this is my tip that help anybody else trying to do what I'm doing?
I think it's to trust, you know, especially when you're buying from a kind of a housing association or a developer. I think it's okay to trust them, and I think sometimes there's a bit of a misconception that they're kind of out to get your money and then that's the end of it. Actually,
Yes.
I think it's okay to trust them and to ask
Yes.
questions, because it is their job to help you and they want to
Absolutely.
help you. So I think that's the big one for me. Just kind of don't be afraid to really like just get in there and
Very good.
throw yourself in and ask questions and just, you know, trust them a little bit.
Yeah, no, good advice.
Yeah. I mean, so I obviously haven't gone through one of the schemes, and hearing these stories, I'm like, really should have. It sounds great. It sounds really helpful. But so for me, I think it's start saving, think ahead, start saving when you can, and get on top of your finances. Know what they are. Know if you've got a credit score or whatever.
Absolutely.
And I think the trust thing as well, to be fair, like I had to put a lot of blind faith in people and just be like, everyone does this like every day. It's okay. This is normal. It's okay.
Yeah.
Sign that piece of paper, you'll be fine. So yeah.
I'd say don't be put off by what the media's saying, because it's massive in the news at the moment, like affordability, and it's pretty much impossible to basically
Yes.
own your own property. It's not impossible, and again, going back to trust. You know, trust that it will happen, and it will.
That's really good. Thank you. And Jen, have you got a little top tip that you would like to pass on?
My key one would be to educate yourself. We're really fortunate in the tenure to have a wealth of information out there. So just go out, educate yourself, ask questions. You know, go to the platforms, go to TikTok. There'll be a million people talking about shared ownership, or you know, getting onto the ladder, buying your first home. So just explore.
Stuart,
Just one tip.
final.
I think, finances are so important.
Yeah.
Get match fit, speak to people, there's
Yeah.
loads of free advice. I think you made a really salient point there that there is a lot of noise out there about challenges with affordability. It is possible to get on the ladder. You guys are testament to that. You just need to do a bit of planning.
Yeah.
Planning and make sure that you understand your finances and also what your finance pressures could be in 5 years. And
Yes.
sometimes only you know that. And
Absolutely.
make the right decision for you.
Yeah,
I think
because
that's a really good one, actually. The knowing in 5 years where you'll be, because they ask you, well, at least they did in my mortgage things, like, what do you expect to be getting married, having a child, doing this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God, I haven't thought about it. I don't know, maybe. So yeah,
yeah, that's very true.
you do have to
though.
think a little bit
Yes.
ahead.
I think that's a key one as well with Help to Buy. So a lot of people bought Help to Buy not really thinking about what their 5-year plan was and where they would be in 5 years, and are now finding themselves, I mean, we've got other people that are selling, they're buying through shared ownership because they're not quite in a comfortable position to buy out that equity loan. And so it is a really, really valid point. You need to have a bit of a plan and be on track with it.
Yeah.
And George, what's your top tip?
Don't be afraid to ask silly questions.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know, there are people out there who know the answers and they're able to help you.
Great, very good, very, very good. Well, I think that we've had such an interesting conversation. I'd really like to thank you all for coming and sharing your stories, your experiences, giving us an insight into a first-time buyer. It's really, really interesting for us. Obviously, we work in the industry, but it's lovely to hear how it's all going for you, and it's very nice that you've all pretty much, you know, got your own homes, and Laura's very soon now, isn't it? And thank you so much to Stuart and to Jen. Really appreciate your expert advice today. You know, very interesting, don't you think, what we've heard?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
this is what it's all about.
Absolutely.
It makes it all worthwhile. So yes, thank you. Thank you everybody very much. National Home Buying Week Live. I really think that this has been a very interesting conversation. We've all learned a lot, and I want to thank everybody for taking the time to come and chat with us. Thank you. So Jen, just one quick fire question. Legal and General Affordable Homes, properties, developments all over the country. Which one would you personally like to live in? It's hard.
That is a really tough one. We've got some brilliant schemes. I think if I were to choose one of our developments, it would be the Acer Apartments at White City Living. So we have got studios and 1-beds remaining from the 13th up to the 22nd floor. Fantastic panoramic views of the London skyline, beautifully specced and fantastic location. So you're well connected to pretty much all of London. So yeah, I think that would be my choice.
That would be your one. Stuart, Abbury have also got homes in a very wide area.
We do. So we're across
you've
the
got-
southeast, south and southwest. I've added the southeast in there. South and southwest. If I had to choose one, we've got many great schemes. There's one that jumps out, Manorwood in West Horsley,
Nice.
which is just outside Guildford. Lovely village. Got lovely amenities and a train line that you can get into town, into London with. Great place to live. Lots of
Lovely.
great reasons to be there.
Yes, it all sounds very good. So just before we finish, Jen, quick plug for your website.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could go to landgar.com, you will find all of our developments listed on the website. And of course, for kind of shared ownership wide information, it's always Share to Buy for us.
Right. And Stuart?
AbburyHomes.co.uk, but I'd also mirror Share to Buy to what we were speaking about earlier. Great area for lots of information, but you'll also find that on our websites too.
Lovely. And I better give myself a plug. We've got National Home Buying Week.co.uk, first week in October, which is obviously happening at this moment. Do keep looking because there's so much information on there.